It's okay to have questions about getting vaccinated for COVID-19. Wherever you are in your decision, the New Jersey Department of Health can help. Watch New Jersey doctors discuss important COVID-19 vaccine information at nj.gov/health/vaxfax. That's nj.gov/health/VAXFACTS.
And now for something completely different. That's right. Good morning. It is back at long last. Fantasy Hockey X comes to you live from somewhere in a concubine in New Jersey. Like I've said, the fun part of the show is that we get to do this from, I don't know, almost outside, or nearly. The NHL Playoffs are going on full steam. It's about 2 weeks before Memorial Day. Memorial Day is late this year, and of course, playoffs will still probably be just about the end of round. It may be the end of round one for most teams, and some may still, a few in the North Division may still be playing. That's just how it is. For example, like I said, Winnipeg and Edmonton don't get underway till tomorrow night. Montreal and Toronto don't start till Thursday. That's right. So a full 5 days after the first game of the playoffs start between Boston and Washington, Montreal gets underway against Toronto. By then, Boston and Washington will have played 3 games already. What are you going to do? At any rate, like I said, we're going to be doing this as often as we can. We'll probably do another one tomorrow, early in the morning, maybe a little bit before this time. And the goal of these will be every so often just to give you a little bit of the fantasy landscape. Not so much from a box pool stance, or a perspective, but more just an in general, hey, this is what's going on. This is what happened. These are some of the guys to look for. These are some of the guys that you may want to avoid. We may toss in a few betting props along the way as time goes by, and we'll see how it goes. That's the point. We do want to thank the folks at Full Press Coverage and Ian Glendon and Murray Pam and many, many others, including Russ Cohen, the guys from Off the Post, and let's face it, many, many people that make something like this possible. Now, like I said to a few people last night, as watching some of the late night game between Colorado and St. Louis, and then obviously Boston and Washington, what you have in some of these series, and you see it already, for one, St. Louis is still, their most consistent quality is their inconsistency. We have said this from the beginning of the season, and it has continued right through, even into game one. Just when you think you have St. Louis figured out, St. Louis just disappears. Or worse, reappears. Last night, it was, I disappear. Literally. Look, Colorado had 50 shots on goal. Binnington faced 49. He wanted to fight everybody by the end of the game. You hardly, some ways, could blame him for the way things went. Do you wish he could handle things better than a 5-year-old toddler who doesn't get his favorite squeezy toy? Perhaps. Was he the only one that faced a ton of shots like that and lost last night? No. Do you see almost 40-year-old Craig Anderson throwing a temper tantrum like that? No, because he was able to keep his team in the game. I can't say make a few more saves, Jordan, because, I mean, what else was he going to do? St. Louis's offense was next to non-existent last night, except for Jordan Kyrou, who probably had several of the best chances of the night for St. Louis, aside from maybe the Ryan O'Reilly chance that I saw, where literally Philip Grubauer had him mapped to the point where he could have slept and made the save. He had the shot figured out probably before O'Reilly even shot the puck. Now, again, are the series going as expected? And the answer is no. Part of me really did think that Boston would be up 2-0 on Washington after 2 games. If you throw the aside out, maybe the 1 or 2 or whatever goal, especially game 1, the goal that Patrice Bergeron should have had. I mean, he had, when you have the goalie that beat, it should go in. And the argument was, Boston didn't really have that much in the way of quality from their top line as far as scoring chances. I don't know. You hit the post, and last I checked, that's a pretty damn good scoring chance. If that goes in, that game doesn't go to overtime. That does make a bit of a difference, does it? It also makes you kind of wonder if game 2 had even gone to overtime if game 1 didn't. Makes you think a little bit, what if, what could have been, etc. But bottom line is the series is tied going to Boston tomorrow. Please do note, though, tomorrow it is a 6:30 p.m. Eastern time start. Not 7 o'clock, 6:30. So that's important. Now, again, from a fantasy standpoint last night, big news and to-dos and all that fun stuff. Some of the best from last night, obviously, you have to consider first and foremost, I've said this for a while. Some will severely disagree with this. But, and this was a lot of fun last night. Look at some of the numbers that came out of last night's games. Just a few. Now, from a fantasy standpoint, remember standard box pool, goal, point, assist, probably a point. Maybe, your box pool weighs goals a little bit different, weighs a game-winning goal or a shutout a little bit different. But here you go. Here are some of the bottom 9 numbers from last night, the big ones, obviously. Okay. And I said this all along. Philip Grubauer faced 23 shots last night. From the parts of the game that I watched, or basically after the Carolina-Nashville game ended, Grubauer made 5 or 6 quality saves in that game out of the 23 shots he faced. It was a very weird sort of game. Yes, Colorado outshot St. Louis 50-23. 50-23. Nathan MacKinnon, by the way, had 6 of those shots. Had 2 goals and an assist and 3 points. Probably the fantasy. He was the fantasy player of the night. Matter of fact, for prize picks, that was basically when you added it up, that was a nice plentiful 11.5 points because he also had a blocked shot. Gee, Nathan, since your over was only 5.6 last night on prize picks, could you have saved a few because you doubled your over in one game? Just saying. By the way, Gabriel Landeskog had 9.5 points last night. He also had the Gordie Howe hat trick for those scoring at home. He had a goal and 2 assists on the night. Obviously, there's the standard surprises. Not really Jordan Staal. Jordan Stahl's been very good all season for Carolina. He's been consistent. I don't think you expected him to score 2 goals last night, though. You expected the 4 shots on goal. You expected him maybe to get 1 goal, but not 2, perhaps. Then you had Andrei Svechnikov. Svechnikov, again, 8 shots on goal on 12 attempts last night, ladies and gentlemen. 12. Even better than Taylor Hall's 7 shots on 11 attempts, which in itself was something else. Taylor Hall actually had a better expected goals for than 3/4 of Washington's team combined last night. He had a 1.23 expected goals for by himself. By himself. And yes, I know, advanced stats, blah, 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 blah. But this guy has played much better since the trade to Boston. He had 8 goals on 48 shots in 16 games. He averaged 3 shots on goal a game compared to 2.36 shots a game. Buffalo, his high danger chances were double the amount of what they were in Buffalo. As a matter of fact, he equaled his chances in less than half the games played as far as high danger chances. That's pretty scary. You start looking at some of the numbers, you run through them. Obviously, Brad Marchand had the game-winning goal in 5 shots last night. So he hit the DraftKings bonus on top of it, which was a nice icing on the cake, considering going into the overtime, he'd done nothing. It's not that he'd done nothing, but he only had 4 shots on goal. So it really didn't do anybody any good. That goal vaulted him in a lot of circles last night. Also of note, among the guys that, that 50-shot barrage from Colorado, Mikko Rantanen only had 2 assists, but he had 6 shots on goal. So if you looked at, say, Prize Picks, he had 7 points last night. Again, you could have taken that entire top line, ran with it. 8 points. Cale Makar had a goal. You could go up and down that lineup and go, wow, that was just some kind of performance. That being said, you look at the games overall. Boston winning in overtime. And the weirdest thing with the Boston-Washington series in this dynamic is this. The secondary scoring is determining the series, but not in the way anybody expected. Often the primary scoring from both teams up until to a degree last night. Obviously, Boston had 2 goals from their top line last night. And they had 2 goals from the rest. If Boston keeps scoring 4 even strength goals a night, Washington is not staying in the series. There is no way. Look, we'll do this real fast. It's not really a fantasy angle. It's more of a hockey angle. But everybody has talked about how Carl Hagelin went off the ice at the worst possible time in overtime. Mind you, he was only about 35 seconds into his shift when he went off. Broken stick, not broken stick, doesn't matter, whatever the case may be. You do not go off the ice like that in overtime, especially on the first shift of overtime. That was Boston's first chance, and it went in. That was Boston's first sustained possession, first shift. That should not happen in overtime. Now, granted, that play took a lot. It took an excellent David Krejci keep. It took a nice pass from Krejci to Matt Grzelcyk. Grzelcyk fired a laser right to Brad Marchand, basically. Marchand had all day to shoot because of what happened if you looked at it from your television screen and you looked at the right side of the ice, you'd see 2 Washington players that literally didn't know where to go. That, more than the Carl Hagelin blunder, arguably was the problem and the reason why Boston won. Because if you even play some sort of concentric box and one of those Washington players gets somewhat in front of Marchand, that puck probably doesn't go in. It probably doesn't. And that's how you have to look at it. All right. Like I said, again, Washington's primary scoring hasn't been there. They did score 1 power play goal, scored 2 even strength last night. Alex Ovechkin Yeah, he had an assist. Laughably enough, he set up a goal from his office instead of scoring, which was kind of amusing. So if you look at the playoffs so far, and you look at what Ovechkin hasn't done, etc. Ovechkin, laughably enough, has not played extremely poorly by any stretch of the imagination. He has 2 assists in 2 games, but he has no goals. By the way, for perspective, just so you know, this has kind of happened before, just not like this. There was the 7-game series in 2013 where Ovechkin had just 1 goal and 1 assist. So it's not entirely unprecedented. But it is weird that Ovechkin has gone consecutive games without a goal in the postseason. Just seems odd. It has happened, I know, understand, but it does seem odd. He has 8 shots in 2 games, by the way. So he's averaging right around what he averages about 3 to 4 shots a game in the postseason. If you go through last year, 3.75. Year before that was a little lower, 3.33. The Stanley Cup year, Ovechkin averaged 4.18, for example. Okay. Yeah, technically had 100 shots on goal in 24 games. Nearly 4 the year before that. 5 in 2016. Okay, 5. Well over 4 in 2015. We mentioned the 2013 already. 2012, but more than 3.5. 2011, nearly 4. 2010, nearly 5. 2009, 6.5 shots per game. That's not a misprint. By the way, that second year in the league, or the second time Ovechkin was in the playoffs, he averaged a then record for the last decade, basically the last decade and a half, or 2 decades even, going back. He averaged a whopping 12.8 shot attempts a game. Not surprisingly, he had 11 goals in 14 games that year, and was a +10, had 3 power play goals. Jesus. Now that's getting your fantasy. I mean, basically, you're getting 4 rounds of production in 2 right there. You're arguably getting a Stanley Cup run out of 2 rounds, which is why you take a guy like, you may wanted to have taken McDavid in your pool, because if you get 2 rounds, and you say get 12 games out of McDavid, you might get 25 points. You might get something like 8 or 9 goals and 15, 16, 17 assists. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. By the way, they haven't played yet, so we're still waiting. But again, there's just some amusing numbers with this, like we said. I mean, Garnet Hathaway has 2 goals. That shouldn't happen. It's like Kyle Palmieri having 2 goals on Sunday. Neither goal should have went in. Tristan Jarry could have stopped. The strangest thing about this playoff so far may be that Pittsburgh game against the Islanders, because all 4 goals that the Islanders scored, you can make an argument that each one of those were shots that could have been stopped. And that is pretty next level crazy stuff there. And we've said it many times. Now, again, part of the early fantasy landscape. Did you have to draft a really good goalie to go on a run? Yes. For me personally, every league that I've made a deep run in a box pool league in the last 5 seasons, The goalie that I had that went to the Stanley Cup final, I either finished first or second in each of those box pools. Sounds weird. Happened once, happened twice. You'd be like, okay, that's a coincidence. 5 times in a row? Might be something to it. Now, again, these are types of little nuggets and things that we're going to go back and forth with this show. Again, the goal of the show itself is to have a little bit of fun with this, chit chat about what's going on with the playoffs, occasionally do video for this, which means you can see my ugly chrome dome. And of course, eventually we'll start taking playoff questions from everybody. And again, like I said, we'll take props, we'll do this, we'll have a little fun with some of the numbers, maybe to put a few bets mixed in along with the fantasy hockey focus of the podcast, of course. Now, for those that don't remember, and we'll do this because we're probably going to wrap this up in about 10 minutes or so, because I want to keep this between 35 and 45 minutes today. For those that don't know, hi, my name is Chris Wassel. I am a hockey writer. I do beat writing for the New Jersey Devils and a few other teams along the way. I will pinch in on occasion for certain teams. Like this year, I'm pinching in on full press coverage, on full press hockey, as I'm doing the Montreal Canadiens as well. And maybe my background in French helps a little bit. Also, I do a little bit of writing on the daily fantasy aspect of things on a few sites. But obviously my focus here is for full press coverage and to bring you a little bit of everything as we're going along. So there will be, again, some betting aspects into this, some betting props perhaps mixed in with the fantasy hockey talk as well, and a little bit of recap of what is going on in general in the playoffs, because it does have a fantasy hockey impact. For example, take no further look than tonight's Florida and Tampa Bay game, Game 2. Again, from suburbs of Miami, Sunrise. Sam Bennett is suspended. He will not be playing in tonight's game. That makes a significant fantasy impact, much like it did in Game 1. Just this is going to be a little bit different. Now, one of the key aspects of that game is, can Florida's penalty kill do something about Nikita Kucherov? Kucherov scored both of his goals on the power play, and the Florida penalty kill looked completely disorganized, as if they were surprised, as if they didn't know Nikita Kucherov was coming back. It looked like Nikita Kucherov played an entire season. He didn't look rusty at all. Maybe a little bit at times at even strength, but on the power play, the quick reflexes and reaction time were there. And that is something that you have to like. And that's the thing. Now, we've said this before. It's something else. Now, here's the fun part. And we'll say this often. What happens tonight, say, if Alexander Barkov goes off again? And Florida somehow figures out how to kill a few penalties. Now, here's the fun part, or the even more fun part. Is this series, and this is a key point in this, Game 1 did remind some people a little bit of a certain 2012 series between the Philadelphia Flyers and Pittsburgh Penguins. So, yes, you're going to get a historical fantasy hockey context to this. Now, what happens as a result is the following. How many goals are going to get scored tonight? 7, 8, 9, 10 combined. Is there going to be a goaltending duel? Okay, don't laugh. Nah. But something to think about. Florida really beat up on Tampa Bay the last 2 games of the season. How mad did that make Tampa Bay really? Anybody ever think that maybe that was the best thing that could have happened to Tampa Bay and the worst thing that Florida could have done? It's like awakening a sleeping giant. It really is. You hate to use a cliche like that, but it's true. They pissed Tampa Bay off, for a lack of a better term. And Tampa Bay came out, and yeah, it was a little herky-jerky in the first period, but when they started to draw some penalties, that was it. They got their groove back. They scored 4 of the final 6 goals, and that was game. They held on for a 5-4 win and took temporary control of the series. Now, like I said, what happens tonight? The answer is, don't know. That's the screwball part of all of this. You don't really know. Now, go through the rest of the schedule. Obviously, everybody and their aunt and uncle is going to own Florida and Tampa Bay players in some way. What do you do? So you're gonna have guys like Barkov and Stamkos and Point, especially Kucherov, who are going to be ridiculously owned. Vasilevsky and I presume it's going to be Bobrovsky unless something unforeseen happens. I'd start Spencer Knight at some point, but that's just me. So you're not going to touch the goaltending. You're almost kind of afraid to, just because of the you don't know if you're going to get quite the same shot volume that you've seen in some of the other game 2s. So it does definitely make you pause. And you look at some of the other games too. I mean, look, Minnesota and Vegas. Is anybody going to score a goal in regulation? The answer probably tonight is yes, but how many? Is it going to be like a 2-1 or 3-2 game again? That actually was the expectation going in, to be honest. People thought that probably Vegas would win like 2-1 or 3-1 perhaps. Well, got the 1 right, just that Vegas didn't score any. And of course, we're waiting to see. Max Pacioretty is still apparently trending in the right direction, whatever that means, Mr. DeBoer. So, in that sense, again, what do you do there? If you have a box pool, you're probably sweating bullets because you don't know what you're going to be able to do or when Pacioretty is going to fully return. Expect a decision later. At some point during the day, and that will have a ripple effect on whether how your teams do. For daily fantasy, I mean, it's just you're going to sit there and wait and wait and wait and wait. The one fortunate thing about tonight, you're doing the playoff rosters, doesn't lock till 7:30 tonight, whereas tomorrow night it locks at 6:30. So that is a big difference. It is significant, to say the least. Again, these are a lot of things to keep in mind. Then you obviously have the Islanders and the Penguins. The Penguins' top line absolutely dominated for the entire first half, pretty much, of that game on Sunday. And then the Islanders sort of gradually took over like they typically do. And it's because Pittsburgh just could not finish in that second period, particularly that first, like I said, 10 to 12 minutes of that second period, where again and again, Pittsburgh just kept getting chance after chance after chance, where they all the highest quality, no, but the opportunities were there. If Pittsburgh at any time makes that a 2-goal game, it's over. It really was over at that point. But they didn't. The Islanders were allowed to claw back into it, and they won in overtime. The Islanders even took a lead, and Penguins came right back. But again, it comes down to execution. It's even with the case with Boston. Boston in game 1 probably should have scored 4 or 5 goals, and they didn't, because simply they could not execute. That's what it boils down in the playoffs. You can get all these shots and all these chances, but if they don't go in, yeah, it's great. Oh, I had all these quality chances, all these high danger chances. Some of them have to go in the net sometime. Look at the great example. Look at the one year that Ovechkin had just 2 points in 7 games, and Washington was eliminated in 7. They were eliminated in 7 games literally because Ovechkin couldn't hit the broadside of a freaking barn. He had 1 goal on 30 shots. It happens. It happens to any freaking player. And that's why fantasy hockey is such a crapshoot in the playoffs. Is your player going to be this year's John Druce, perhaps? Yeah, that's right. 1990 Washington Capitals reference. Or is your superstar going to turn into a pumpkin out of nowhere? You never quite know. And that's kind of the crux of the problem, as it often is with the playoffs. So, like I said, goal tonight, you're probably looking at either Fleury or Talbot in net for DFS. Stinks. It really does limit your options. I mean, if you want to go and risk Jarry and hope to God that the Islanders don't find his glove side high, good luck. It might work. It's worth a shot. He seems to stop everything else, which is awesome. You just can't stop the shoulder shot or the glove shot. Oh, gee, if you're pegged like Mikko Koskinen, look at what happens. They're going to figure you out, and they're going to keep exploiting it until you stop it. And if you can't stop it, well, eventually your contract's a waste. Just how it is. And fantasy-wise, you're irrelevant or worse. So, again, if you want to go with risk, maybe you try rolling the dice with one of the Florida goaltenders. That may be one way to go. I mean, look, remember, these are short playoff slates, and they're shorter than usual because of the staggered schedule. Remember, only 3/4 of the games are going because you have the North Division, which we're waiting for till tomorrow. So you're seeing these 2 and 3 game slates. Whereas last year, you had these 4 and 5 game slates. It at least looked like a short, normal slate. And you went, okay, I picked such and such. No problem. Now it's not the case. Well, we'll see. And like I said, maybe we'll extend this a little bit just to give a few minutes and a few more of our thoughts on the landscape. Like I said, 3 days into the playoffs, we're on day 4 already. The NHL playoffs. Technically, it's like day 3.5 because, well, night 1 was 1 game. You think about it. And you had 3, then 3, and 3. And now it's like, okay, well, we're getting into somewhat of a rhythm. Awesome. Also, we will be doing some of the updates from the box pools from the full press hockey pool. It'll be fun to see how this goes. The rules are fairly simple. 10 forward. I believe it was 10 forwards, 3 defensemen, and 1 goaltender. Yes, in this league I took Grubauer for a reason, because I figured Grubauer stood the best chance of either making the Stanley Cup final or winning the Stanley Cup. Does it stink because he probably will have limited production because unfortunately he's only going to face 25 to 27 shots a game? Probably. Case last night he only faced 23. But he got the win. He only gave up 1 goal. Was it Marc-Andre Fleury stopped 40 plus? No. Was it Cam Talbot to stop 42 in a shutout? No. But I'm pretty much guaranteed a goalie that's going to get more than likely to the conference final. I think. Stranger things have happened with the playoffs, after all. Just ask, for example, New Jersey Devils in 2009 probably should have gotten to at least the conference final and didn't because they gave up 2 goals in the time it takes to an average person to go to the bathroom. And went from winning a series they probably should have lost to actually losing the series they should have lost. Who knew? But again, we'll go over some pools. We'll plug this on Twitter. It'll probably get posted and go up on iTunes and whatever time, and it'll get simulcast on Full Press coverage and Full Press Hockey. And as we build up some of the episodes, we will ask, like we're asking right now, for your questions. We'll try and answer them as best as we can, whether it's via social media or on the podcast itself. I'm not going to lie, it's kind of nice to be back. It's been a long, strange trip of sorts. And like I have said many times, with the pandemic, it's been a long process of, let's face it, things other than sports, unfortunately. And it's tough. I get it. For anybody that's out there that's making a living this way, it is not easy. It is not easy at all. And needless to say, I understand. So, again, for myself, we will be bringing hopefully 1 or 2 more fantasy hockey writers on board. Hopefully the VOTs will be joining us from time to time as the summer goes on. We'll be doing some of these at night too. So Jeff will hopefully be joining us. And we'll be eventually bringing on some guests as well here and there. So do be patient. We're gonna have some fun with this. I mean, hey, this is the best time of the year. It's a lot better than the last go around with the playoffs. And the playoffs started late in the summer and went into the fall almost. That was rough. And as everybody knows, we basically wound up not starting until mid-January, so it felt like a lockout year almost, but not really. And this year, obviously, we end it in mid-May, the regular season. And the playoffs are going to last until about, first, second week of July, hopefully. Hopefully we get through, by the first week, that some of these rounds end early enough that maybe by the 6th or 7th, we're done and we've crowned a Stanley Cup champion. So that July 28th free agency can start. We can somewhat get this to within a couple weeks of the normal opening for the regular season. and have pretty much a nearly, you don't want to say normal, but something that comes close for next season. Because honestly, it's affected everybody and everything this year. And it's not easy, and it's driven people beyond crazy in a multitude of facets. People that are just working like they never have before. People that have lost their jobs and worse. And it does definitely make you think. So from that sense, we're here and we're not going anywhere. I'm glad to say that with much pride, that we're here to stay again. And we have a platform that we enjoy. More importantly, and I've said this before, follow me at Chris Wassel DFS. I'm always around. I'm always answering questions. Might get a little bit hectic at times, but nonetheless, we're going to just grind through this like we always do. And before you know it, figure another, 7.5 weeks? Playoffs are over. Season's over, and then we'll go into the offseason. We'll talk about, who are we going to draft next year? Well, obviously, everybody knows who's going at 1.1, and that's Connor McDavid. But still, that's besides the point. Again, I want to thank everybody for taking a listen. And the show, like I said, will probably be up on iTunes in about, hour, 2 hours maybe. Hopefully if it figures itself out. And then we'll get it uploaded onto the full press coverage part of the equation as far as the site. And then we'll go from there. So for myself and all the people, again, from full press coverage and social media that make this possible, this is Chris Wassel signing off for Fantasy Hockey X. Good luck tonight in your fantasy hockey leagues, and don't forget, have a question, throw it up there on Twitter at Chris Wassel DFS, and we'll try and take a stab at it and see what happens. Good luck, everybody, tonight, and good luck in your box pools. Bye-bye.
It's okay to have questions about getting vaccinated for COVID-19. Wherever you are in your decision, the New Jersey Department of Health can help. Watch New Jersey doctors discuss important COVID-19 vaccine information at nj.gov/health/vaxfacts. That's nj.gov/health/vaxfacts.